Everyone, welcome to Inside Finance television production. I am Ruth Roberts. Inside Finance is a television program where we share with you some of the intricate details of the Ministry of Finance services, and it's basically what we do, who we are, and how we interact with you, the general public. Today I have with me, as promised, the Inland Revenue Department. We have the Comptroller of Inland Revenue, Mr. Michael Stephen to my extreme left, and the Public Relations Officer of the Inland Revenue Department, Mrs. Kareen Morain-Alexander. Welcome to our Inside Finance television studios.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. Well, even as we right off the bat begin the process, share with our viewers what role the inland revenue play in the economic development of Grenada. Because most people think about inland revenue, well, I got to pay my taxes, or I got to pay my land tax, my personal income tax licenses, stuff like that. So give us a sense of the role your division play in the economic development of Grenada.
Okay. The inland revenue primary function is to collect revenue inland, as opposed to the customs division, which collects revenue at the port.
Right.
So financing developmental projects and growing the economy depends on generating revenues from three different sources. We have loans, which has a cost, which is interest. Then we have grants we get from developmental partners and friendly governments. And then we have taxes, which we generate inland via the Inland Revenue Division. Yeah, so therefore, the more revenue that is generated via taxes, the less you'll have to rely on loans and grants in order to finance economic development.
I mean, in terms of PR, usually you want to be able to get persons to be tax compliant. So, I mean, obviously, it's not that I don't really want to pay tax. I mean, of course, I'm obligated to pay. Yes. So what are some of the strategies that the I.R.D is using to be able to help persons to be more tax compliant?
Okay, well, during the reform process, we've initiated two divisions within the Inland Revenue Division, 2 units. I must say the large and medium taxpayer unit and the small and micro. We started first with the large and medium because we recognize that these taxpayers are some of our most compliant, and then we need to get others into the box as well. So we have a section that is cut out to form better relationships with our large and medium taxpayers, and so that is one segment of it. Then we are also looking to do more outreach programs. Yes, so go out and meet the people in the community. We've had some outreach offices in the different parishes leading up to property tax deadline. So that is one of them as well. And we also we have a greater presence on radio now than ever before. So yes, so that's what PR is doing basically. Yes.
In terms of the policy direction though, you have a compliance strategy. So explain to us, well, basically how you use that strategy to collect revenues.
Well, what we did was we looked at the different risks involved in the collection of taxes. And coming out of that, we developed a compliance strategy. So the compliance strategy basically encourages the taxpayers to be voluntarily compliant.
Right.
So this means that they would not be coerced to come and pay the taxes. They will do it voluntarily. The Tax Administration Act, which was passed in 2016, outlines all the obligations that taxpayers are entitled to perform. Right? Within that legislation, there are lots of penalties that may be imposed on taxpayers if they do not comply with the different laws. So I believe that because of the introduction of that legislation, taxpayers, they don't want to find themselves in a situation where they will be liable to pay in excess of taxes, which is the penalties and interest. So therefore, I believe that they come in and they pay on time because of that.
Right, so basically you use a soft power approach. You're not really bulldozing them, although you have the legal framework to do so, but you're more or less trying to get them to come and do it voluntarily. That's good. What are some of the various tax types that you administer, and give us a sense of some of the rates, because you want to keep persons constantly aware of what's going on.
Essentially, we have 10 different taxes. Persons would be aware of them. There's the personal income tax, there's the corporate income tax, there is the V.A.T, which is very popular. Then there's the property transfer tax, there's inheritance tax, there is inland revenue excise tax, there's gaming tax, and annual stamp tax. These taxes have different rates. For example, the personal income tax, there are two different rates. There is a 30% rate at the upper bound, that is for persons in excess of $60,000 per annum.
Okay.
And between $36,000 and $60,000, there is a 10% rate on the personal income tax. The corporate income tax, there is a rate of 30% currently. The V.A.T, generally there's a 15% rate, but the tourism sector has a 10% rate.
Okay.
And there's also a 20% rate for mobile services. The gaming tax, for example, which is a recently introduced tax, generally there's a 30% tax on gaming. The overall receipts of the gaming industry is taxed at a rate of 30%. So, those different taxes and rates, we essentially want to, in the future, reduce the amount of taxes that we have.
Right.
Because the population and advisors have advised that we have too many taxes on the books, so we want to reduce the amount of taxes sometime in the future. In addition to taxes, we have also several licenses that we impose as well. But as you know, the taxes are levied on a monthly basis, and license you have to pay on an annual basis. Right? So that is essentially the difference between those two.
But before you give us a little sense of some of the tax in a little more detail, you want people to understand that the taxes are necessary, because in your opening statement you talked about it's probably the primary ways that we collect revenues to take care of the roads, infrastructure, to do different things. So, when you think about a business, you can see from where the business will collect revenue. But in the context of government, taxes are important so that government has the necessary finances to do what needs to be done. So people sometimes look at taxes as a bad thing, but in fact it's not.
No, well, taxes is not a bad thing, because why do you have a government in place? The government is there to provide goods and services to the population. How does it do that? It has to finance it. Right. So by the use of tax revenue, you can provide education, primary and secondary. You can provide healthcare services, the general hospital. You can provide infrastructure, the roads, bridges, and so forth. So that is the reason why you have to tax the population, unless you have a country where you are endowed with substantial natural resources, like, for example, some of the oil-rich countries in the Middle East. We don't have that oil. Of course, in fact, recently
we may very well
discovered oil. But there will be some time before we can reap the benefits of that.
Yeah, for instance,
in the meantime, in order to generate revenue to provide these public goods, we'll have to extract it from the population.
So what is inheritance tax?
Well, inheritance tax is a tax that you levy on inherited property and goods in the population.
Right. Which of these taxes would you say are highest in terms of compliance, and what are responsible in your mind for that compliance?
Well, the V.A.T is the tax that has the highest level of compliance. And as I said before, the introduction of the tax admin act, which outlined the obligations and duties of the taxpayer. It has several penalties which you will impose if you don't pay or if you are not non-compliant. And because of the large figures involved in the payment of VAT, taxpayers don't want to find themselves in a position where they'll have to pay substantially more than the base tax that is paid. Because if they miss the payment date, a penalty will be applied, and that penalty, even that is 20% of the outstanding balance, could result in a very large figure. So in order to try and avoid that, taxpayers will generally want to pay their VAT on time. And in addition to that, the VAT is a tax that...
It's a consumption tax, right?
Yes, it's a tax that the taxpayer will have to pay on behalf of the government again.
Yes.
Right? So they collect it and they pay it in the government. So if you don't do that, I mean, you are essentially breaching the law and holding revenues that don't belong to you. Right? So,
because it doesn't come out from your thing; it comes from the consumer
Okay.
who pays for the goods.
So do you have, like, are there any of the taxes that you have major issues with in terms of compliance?
The tax with the lowest compliance rate is the annual stamp tax.
Why is that so?
And that is because it's basically, it's a small tax. It's levied at 0.5% between $36,000 and $300,000 and 0.7% above $300,000. But what we find is that persons, because they tend to think it's a nuisance tax, right? Because the rate is so small, so they tend to be less compliant where that is concerned. But we have instituted certain measures that began last year, 2017, to address that. We had 2 amnesties actually last year that were geared at addressing those areas. So we expect that the compliance rate of the annual stamp tax would improve going forward.
But you talked a little bit about the penalties, but give us maybe a exact case in point where non-compliance can lead to a certain penalty.
An exact case. Well, you have a payment due date, right, for pay, and then you have a due date for filing, right? So if you miss the payment due date, you will be hit with a 20% charge, right, on the outstanding balance, and a 1.5% charge going forward for every month that you remain when the balance remains in existence. In addition to that, if you do not file on time, you'll be hit with charges as well. 5% and 1% on the outstanding balance, or $500 and $100, whichever is greater. Right. You will be charged. So, as I said, persons, the general public will tend to want to avoid having to pay these penalties and interest. So they will essentially want to file and pay when it becomes due.
Viewers, we are speaking with Comptroller of Inland Revenue, Mr. Michael Stephen, and PR of Inland Revenue, Ms. Kareen Morain-Alexander. This is our Inside Finance program, an inside look into the nation's business. Please don't go away. We will be right back.
We need you. We need your help for better decision making for our country's development.
What are household surveys?
We at the National Statistics Office use household surveys to collect economic, environmental, social, and demographic data about you and your living conditions. We need data from you and the members of your household to ensure that when the government, businesses, and other organizations make decisions, they respond to your needs. These decisions should address your concerns about education, healthcare, employment, the youth, crime, and so much more. The specific types of data we will collect depend on the purpose of the survey. In the OECS region, we generally conduct labor force surveys that help monitor and measure levels of employment, surveys of living conditions to establish poverty lines and identify the poor, household budget surveys or household expenditure surveys to assess how households spend money on goods and services, multiple indicator cluster surveys, which provide data on characteristics of women and children, health and wellness surveys, which collect data on the population's health, and other ad hoc surveys on youth, ICT, environment, and agriculture.
How are data collected?
Most surveys are collected through face-to-face interviews. An enumerator, that is, an official who collects data for the National Statistics Office, visits the household, interviews household members, and records the responses on a paper or electronic questionnaire. The data collected will be kept confidential by law. The enumerator will identify him or herself by producing a National Statistics Office ID.
Why is it important to participate in the surveys?
Surveys only collect data on a sample of households. If your household is selected and you do not participate, this affects the survey results. The quantity of data collected may not be sufficient to produce quality statistics necessary to make the right decisions for the development of your community and the country. Play your part and participate in the next survey. Help us to help you. This message is brought to you by your National Statistics Office with support from the OECS Commission and the Government of Canada.
Welcome back. This is our Inside Finance television production. I am Ruth Roberts. Inside Finance is a television production aimed at allowing the general public to understand the intricate elements of the ministry's function and service. It's about what we do, who we are, and how we interact with you, the general public. In fact, it's an inside look into your business. Today we have with us the Inland Revenue Division, and we are talking a bit about what they do, their own functions, and how they interact with the public. We've spoken a little bit about the taxes, which is a huge chunk of what they do. And I have with me the Comptroller Mr. Stephen and P.R. Mrs. Kareen Morain-Alexander. I mean, when you think about inland revenue, you have to be thinking about taxes because that's the basis upon which you operate. But can persons be granted extensions? Because we hear you're supposed to pay, you didn't pay. What if I didn't pay? Is there a way that I might be able to be granted an extension?
Yes, the taxpaying public can be granted an extension. In fact, the Tax Administration Act, Section 20 and 50, gives the comptroller the authority to grant an extension to pay and to file. However, the request must come in before the due date.
Okay, explain a little bit about how the filing and paying is done.
Okay, the filing is basically we send out a form. It's called a return. So in the case of a personal income tax, you'll have a personal income tax return.
Right.
ASD, annual stamp tax, you have that return that is sent to the taxpayer. So in instances, some people say they don't receive it, but we normally send it out. So in the case that you don't get it, it's in your best interest that you contact the Inland Revenue Division to say that you didn't get your return. Then we could email it to you, as well as we can facilitate you by coming to the office and giving you that, because there's no excuse for not filing.
Can you file and pay online?
Especially if you know that this tax type is assigned to you. Yes.
Can you file and pay online? Is there an online service?
Yes, we have an online service that you can register at. It's eservices.gov.gd. There you can register to become an online user, and you can pay your taxes online. Right now, you cannot file right now, but for payments you can. So yes, and we have a number of persons that are signed up to that medium. Yeah, but we encourage more persons to get on board. Make it easier for you instead of coming and staying in the long lines.
Right,
yes.
Which people hate.
Yes.
When it comes to, I met a gentleman who said he was living in a house, right, and Hurricane Ivan came and damaged the house, so he had to leave the house, and he ultimately left and went away. And then when he returned, he realized that he had a huge bill from Inland Revenue for penalty and taxes. Right? In a scenario like that, what should he have done? And what can you do to help him?
Well, what What the gentleman needs to do is to write a letter to the Comptroller of Revenue explaining the situation.
Okay.
You know, what happened, why he's in the situation, and seeking a redress.
Okay.
And we will look at the situation, investigate it thoroughly, and determine whether we can probably grant a waiver on the penalties and interest. The tax component you'll have to pay.
Right.
But we can look at granting a waiver on the penalties and interest.
So what should that person have done in order to not end up in a situation like that?
Well, he should have paid his taxes on time.
But no, as far as he was concerned, he wasn't living in the house. So maybe he should have reported. Is there a way?
Report first and then seek advice
from the Inland Revenue Division.
And then he can write a letter stating. Well, first write a letter stating your circumstance, and then we'll take it from there.
Right. So I guess if he had reported it, he would not have ended up in the situation in the first place.
Exactly.
Yeah, because if you're aware of the situation, you could have put some measures in place, to
yeah.
prevent him from racking up all these penalties.
Right. Because as long as he's not living there, I could understand how it happened, but
Yes.
what should persons do if, for instance, for any reason you're no longer living there, the house is abandoned, something, whatever, you report, make sure you have that report to the Inland Revenue Department.
But the thing is, property tax, right? So, property taxes are due and payable every year. So, persons are mandated by law to pay the property tax on an annual basis.
And this is an older
essentially-
gentleman paying like $20 and something.
Right. So you see, if he would have paid his $20 a year, then he would not have had any penalty.
Yeah, but he really didn't know that he had to report. So that's a point I think we should.
Yes, and that too. Once you have any change, whether if it's business, property, or so forth, you are required to advise the division of these changes, because we wouldn't know if we don't go there. And then we have limited staff. We don't have the amount of staff that is needed to give attention to each situation. Yes, so we encourage people, any changes that you have, whether it's a change of address, whether it's a change in your operation or so forth, yes, you have to advise the division.
Property tax can be deemed as one of the most popular of the taxes that is paid by citizens of Grenada. And persons may ask why you have to pay tax on something that you're not getting an income from. What would be your response?
Well, we get it ever so often. Why do I have to pay property tax? But as most of the taxes, it goes towards paying debts. It goes towards roads, healthcare, better schools, better infrastructure as a whole. And you're living in the state of Grenada. You want to see things happen. So it's very essential that you pay your property tax. Yes.
Well, I'm just thinking about it because it makes sense, because it's like I have my little piece of land so long, all I do is just paying. And then when I sell it, I still have to pay.
Yeah, and then you
Like
still
really?
still expect the government to, have the social programs and, help you out in some instances. You understand? So that's where the tax dollars go. Whether it's a property tax, annual stamp tax, or VAT, it goes towards for the development of the country. Services like healthcare, I said, schools, better roads, better infrastructure on a whole.
Basically, in terms of, just before we go on the last break, give us a sense of how, sometimes what I see, especially related to licenses, persons, they wait until the last day or and you see the line, they come and they still quarrel about, wow, this line is so long and people are taking so long. I guess that's a personal thing, but what advice do you have?
Pay early. That's what you don't have to wait on the deadline. Most people wait on the last day to come in. You have the whole, like for personal income tax and the deadlines that come in March.
Whole year.
Yes, at the end of March we have deadlines. We have about 4 deadlines around that time. March 31st, March 38th.
What give us a sense of what they are?
Oh, the licenses for the driver's license, the vehicle license. Then we have annual stamp tax, we have personal income tax. What else do we have? Yes, so all of them come around the same time. So it's not just one tax tax type that we're dealing with. At a
So that's why the
specific-
lines are so long.
Yes, because it's complex. It's not just the one tax type, like you, a driver, come here, pay your license, but there's the persons with the personal
Right, so you
income
have a
tax.
multiplicity
You
of
have
persons
the
coming
annual
together.
stamp tax. So come pay, you have between January and March. Come within that time. Don't wait until the end of March to come and file and pay.
Comptroller, go ahead.
One more point I want to make on property tax, because in the OECS, Grenada has the lowest property tax rates. In fact, property tax rates are below 1%.
Yes.
Right? The
It's
highest rate
point-
is 0.5%
Yes.
Okay.
on commercial. So, the rates for property is not very large. And as my colleague said, the taxes go towards the provision, of services in the country. So, we should pay our taxes.
Well, viewers, this is our Inside Finance television production. We're into the final segment of our program. We have with us Comptroller of Inland Revenue and the PR, Ms. Kareen Morain-Alexander. We're talking quite a bit about taxes and some of the taxes that we struggle to pay. We will talk a little bit about the licenses when we come back, but please stay with us. We will be right back. Welcome to our Inside Finance Facts. Our Inside Finance Facts for today. The government of Grenada's total revenue collection increased by $197.7 million, or 39.4% during the 2014 to 2017 period. Did you know that there is a charge for filing your income tax return late? The answer when we come back. Welcome back. So, did you know that there is a charge for filing your tax return late? According to the Income Tax Administration Act number 14 of 2016, a taxpayer who fails to file a tax return on or before the due date is liable to pay a late fee. This late fee is the higher of the following. 1. 5% of the amount owing plus a further 1% of the amount of tax owing for each month or part of a month during which the failure to file continues. 2. $500 plus $100 for each month or part of a month during which the failure to file continues. So to avoid any penalties, taxpayers are encouraged to file and pay on time. Welcome back. I am Ruth Roberts. This is our Inside Finance television production, an inside look into the nation's business. Today we have the Inland Revenue Division with us, and we've been learning quite a lot about requirements to file and pay taxes and some of the taxes that we are required to do and how important the idea of taxes are, because outside of tax collection there are limited means by which we can have money for developmental purposes. So we've learned that today. And with me today we have the Public Relations Officer, Ms. Kareen Morain-Alexander, and Comptroller of Inland Revenue, Mr. Michael Stevens. I mean, we've done quite a lot in terms of it seemed like taxes are.
And there's so much more
So
to
people
talk
like you, they
about.
don't like you. They don't like you because they have to pay, right? But we understand why we have to pay, and we every month we see persons have their birthday, they will come in and they will pay. In terms of I heard on many occasions that the Prime Minister mentioned Inland Revenue Division outperforming their targets for the month. I'll talk about that a little bit because a reason for you to boast a little bit because it's a good feat, not you? But before that, let's just give me an idea of how and where people can make payments.
Okay, so persons can make payments at our office at the Ministry of Finance, our cash office. They can also make payments at the district revenue offices. There's a district revenue office in each parish. So you don't necessarily have to come to St. George's to do that, but you can stay within your parish, within your district, and make your payments. Yes, you can also pay online as well. eservices.gov.gd. Yes.
And back to that idea we were talking about earlier on. I mean, it's good because the Inland Revenue Division has been performing very well. Is there a secret?
A secret? Well, there are two essential reasons why. Remember in 2014, the country embarked on a structural adjustment program, right? And Inland Revenue was reformed as well. It began a reform process actually. So the economy has been growing ever since 2014, and the buoyancy of taxes in relation to economic growth is very high.
Okay.
So that has helped in the increase in the revenues over time. In addition to that, we have improved on our compliance
strategy
with the general public. I mentioned before that we implemented a compliance strategy, right? So the compliance strategy has essentially ensured that the taxpayers pay on time, file and pay on time, and that has helped to boost the revenue as well. So there's two things: the compliance has improved, and the economic activity in the country has improved.
And the compliance strategy came about because of the reform.
Right.
So the segmentation that I spoke about earlier on of the different tax payers, the large and medium, and so we have persons assigned specifically to businesses and stuff, so they can be reminded that they have to pay. And we're doing some PR. Yes.
Obviously, the relationship with the general public is better because I know you had like a couple of initiatives that took you out of the office into the communities. Let's talk about the outreach office.
Yes, we did some outreach offices in the different districts. So
what was the major aim of those?
The major aim was to listen to their queries and concerns, to get them to get to know their balances, where they, in some instances where they have not paid for years, that they could have come in, have a discussion with us, and then we'll see, maybe we can give them a payment plan. And because a payment plan is also available at the Inland Revenue in case that you have difficulties in paying all at once, once you have arrears. So we accommodate that as well. So all in all, I think we are doing more out there, and more. Well, in the coming days or months, you will see more presence within the district revenue offices, especially with the due dates. When coming around the due dates, that will be able to be there. Inland Revenue will have a presence in the districts to assist the officers there and the taxpayers.
So I guess relationship is important.
Yes, improved relationship, and that is a factor for for compliance.
Comptroller, your final words?
I must agree. The PR, which I failed to mention, is very important because once you educate the taxpaying public of the obligations, and then they have no excuse, right? In fact, every month we publish due dates and so to the public, so they're well aware of when they have to come and file and pay, right? So once they follow those, then they would not get themselves in a situation where they would have arrears, right? So education is important.
Right. In terms of your contact information, give us a sense of how you can be reached. I know you talked a little bit about it, but of course you have your website and whatever.
So we have a website which we're constantly updating. Yes. So it's www.I.R.D.GD, right? And you can also call us on our telephone number is 440-3556, 435-6945. You can also get us on through email, gndiRD@ird.gd.
Well, it has been quite a pleasure meeting both of you and speaking with you about the I.R.D. Of course, this conversation must continue because the work of the I.R.D. is quite expansive, and the fact that you're growing into the reform agenda, it means that you will be doing a lot more. So it would be nice for us to have you back at our Inside Finance studios. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
From your busy schedule to be with us this evening. Well, viewers, it has been a wonderful journey with officers of the Inland Revenue Division. We have Comptroller Mr. Stephen and Public Relations Officer, Mrs. Kareen Morain-Alexander. We've learned quite a lot about taxes and the importance of the taxes and why we should be compliant. And of course, we will continue with our Inside Finance program where we give you, the general public, an inside look into your business. So it's about what we do, who we are, and how we react or interact with the general public. Remember, our business is your business. So thank you so much for joining us. Please join us again next time.